Whether you're standing at the bar with Trevoh Chalobah or you're just enjoying a morning coffee, welcome back to Son of Chelsea. I'm Daniel Childs for my recap, review, breakdown of Chelsea's 3-1 win over Wolves at Stamford Bridge last night. Headline news, I think two headlines really. Number one, death taxes and Trevoh Chalobah being Chelsea's best defender. And the second one is a win is a win is a win. It was so desperately needed, Chelsea getting 3 points, given the nature of the Premier League currently, when you look at the teams closest to us, the upcoming fixtures, but then also how long it's been since Chelsea have actually won a Premier League game, and the fear that Maresca was going to claim a record that hasn't been achieved at Chelsea from a Chelsea head coach or manager since Glenn Hoddle in '96. So the winless streak is over, which is great. Obviously, it wasn't a vintage or incredible performance. I think there are some concerns to break down. One obvious one that just gets us back to a similar issue, unfortunately, with the way the club structures and makes key decisions over their squad. And in some ways, I think Trevoh Chalobah and Robert Sanchez kind of reflect a lot about Chelsea at the moment, for different ways, positive and negative. And we're going to jump into that. But undeniably, we wanted to win a game. We were desperate to see those 3 points be put up on the board. They have. It's just, it's not like we can walk away from the game and say it was the most exemplary performance. And really, it's one of those where you're hoping that the confidence that is gained from winning boosts Chelsea's performance levels for Saturday against a much superior team. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Jumping into it, the starting lineup was not overly shocking. I think we all knew that the injury concerns could create major disruption for some of the key players. And the biggest shock of the night, undeniably, was the start of Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, his first Premier League start for Chelsea. Given it's now, late January, nearly February, kind of symbolises how poor that move has gone for him. Tosin and Chalobah as the back two, Cucurella, Reece James starting, I expected that. Caicedo starting, and then Pedro Neto on the left. Palmer made it, Madueke and Nicholas Jackson. Chelsea had a lot of the ball in that first half, and I have to say, I thought the structure of Chelsea was good enough to pin Wolves back. A very poor Wolves side who didn't really have much of an idea what they were doing with the ball when they got it. You do need to factor in this is a poor Wolves side. This is a side that I don't think will get relegated, but is only outside the bottom three after last night due to goal difference. So, you always have to factor that in. But I thought just the way Chelsea were able to pin Wolves into their own half, look out wide, press really well off the ball. I thought at times we were pressing really well. We had some good chances. Palmer forced Sarr into a save. There were times where we were getting the ball out wide and crossing the ball into the box. But, it was one of those strategies that you kind of look at from a squad management point of view. And if we're going to play those many crosses, why don't we have a more aerially dominant centre forward or someone who can make those runs into the box? Eventually, one of those crosses paid dividends, and I understood why Chelsea were trying to put themselves into set-piece crossing situations, because as we saw from our goals, and also Wolves themselves are so poor defensively from set pieces and corners, and just generally, when a ball goes into the box, they have an issue defending it. We saw that consistently throughout the game. However, you kind of think we're crossing that much into the box. Are we actually doing ourselves a disservice? Or just in terms of if that's our strategy, why don't we have a more dominant player in there to kind of take advantage of those crosses? But the goal itself from Tosin, who I do think was Chelsea's second best player last night. I thought Tosin, a really good night for him, keeps his goal streak going. Good to see us score from a set piece, because we actually haven't scored that many from corners this season. And of course, it took a little bit of a while for VAR to intervene and to overrule it. But it was a huge goal in the context of the game, because the longer you wait before scoring, and given what happened at the end of the first half, things could have got even more nervy for Chelsea. But of course, we've been in this situation many times before, 1-0 in recent weeks, and we haven't been able to capitalise or very much sustain a period of of dominance and go on and win the game comfortably. The difference was this time, we didn't go into half-time 1-0. We went into half-time 1-1, and that happened because of Rob Sanchez. Now, I'm going to get to Trevoh Chalobah if you're waiting for me to talk about Trev, who is kind of the headline of this game. But I want to get the negative out of the way first. Rob Sanchez, one of the things that frustrates me, and it's why you can contrast Trev and Sanchez in this review, is because I think on both cases, the way they were managed not only symbolises everything that's wrong at Chelsea at the moment in the summer, but also, I'm just a guy doing a podcast, from my own home studio, just talking about Chelsea. I don't work in the game. I'm not paid thousands of pounds to make key decisions at Chelsea. But with Rob Sanchez, I was sat here in the summer telling you that he's not a good enough number one for Chelsea. He will let you down. It is a stupid risk. It is it's a risk you do not need to take. You do not need to put yourself in a position where Rob Sanchez is your first choice goalkeeper. The idea there is no one better is a farce. It truly is a farce, and don't let anyone try and tell you that asking for better than Rob Sanchez is somehow an unrealistic expectation or demand. The guy can't hold a ball. It's the basics of goalkeeping he fails at, and the fact that he has cost Chelsea a number of times this season. Yeah, sure, he makes good saves. He plays the odd good pass, but he's a goalkeeper at a top, supposedly elite Premier League club. I kind of expect him to do that. I don't expect him to flap at a ball, be incapable of handling a situation like that, given he's a taller goalkeeper too. It's not like this is a small goalkeeper. Wolves capitalised on that. And in a game where they had barely anything in terms of looking at Chelsea's goal, threatening Chelsea's goal, the complexion of it changes. And everyone knew this was coming with Rob Sanchez. I think that from Maresca, we can talk about how he's handled the Chalobah situation. The Rob Sanchez one, he has been within its remit. He has had an option to bench Rob Sanchez a number of times this season, and he simply hasn't. And I can't believe, given his style of play and his preference to a style of play, he has no say in whether Rob Sanchez was a part of this first team squad. He has persisted with Rob Sanchez. He has defended this guy publicly a number of times. Despite the overwhelming evidence from last season and this season, he simply isn't good enough. I just refuse to accept Rob Sanchez as Chelsea's first choice goalkeeper. I refuse to accept that it's normal, that it's something that should be commended or just accepted. Because the longer you go with this guy as number one, it just symbolises how unserious Chelsea are. And talking about how unserious Chelsea are, we move on to Trevoh Chalobah. Not in the sense that Trevoh Chalobah is unserious. The handling of Trevoh Chalobah has been an absolute disgrace. That performance last night, in so many ways, signifies why the sporting directors should be sacked. Because it's just comical how within literally 5 minutes, I was happy to see Trev back, lovely to see the Bridge give him such a round of applause and singing his name from the off. Within like 5 minutes, it was clear to me Trev is going to have a brilliant performance, and quickly he's going to reassert himself as Chelsea's probably best defender for the rest of this season. And to get it so wrong, for him to contribute to the third goal, for him to make so many good passes, for him to be first in so many metrics across the game, it symbolises how far from competence our sporting director's decision-making is. And actually how far away, a point I will continue to make, because I think Sanchez and Chalobah proved this extensively in the way they were looking at each other as well during the game was hilarious, especially after Sanchez made that error, of how far away we are from just competent, good football decision-making comes to squad building. It just does. How do you back Sanchez over Trevoh Chalobah? I know we're not talking about players who play in the same position, but it shows you so much. And I think it should embarrass the club. The club should have absolutely no leeway to try and take credit for Trevoh Chalobah. They decided to exclude him, brief against their own player throughout the summer, take away his shirt number whilst he was still at the club to give to a signing who they could be trying to sell this month, who has barely done anything for Chelsea. It bar him for first team facilities. It's an absolute disgrace. But I'm so happy because I feel vindicated. I think many people feel vindicated, not only for knowing that this squad decision was stupid in the summer, but also for backing Trevoh Chalobah, for not, we're not deluded. We're not looking at a player and just being sentimental because he's at Cobham. That's a big part of seeing a Cobham graduate flourish. but I'm not, I can see a good player. And I've watched Trevoh Chalobah for an entirety of Chelsea career be one of our best and most consistent and trusted defenders under Thomas Tuchel, under Graham Potter, under Mauricio Pochettino, and now even after one game under Enzo Maresca. So I think that's why it symbolises, Trevoh Chalobah is everything Chelsea should be. Rob Sanchez, unfortunately, is everything Chelsea currently are. And that is where the dynamic has to change, because you simply cannot be discarding players like Trevoh Chalobah and just letting them walk out the door. And as well, if you're not going to buy significantly better than them, it's inexcusable. And I'm happy for Trev, because because he's a defender, he doesn't score the goals. It isn't a Reece James situation, or even in recent years, a Mount situation or a Gallagher situation. Maybe he doesn't always get the plaudits. I felt last night was, and it was so, I know we're jumping forward to the third goal, but it was so significant to me that although Noni put in the goal and the goal was given to him, the crowd was adamant that was Trevoh Chalobah's goal. Like, they were adamant that was Trev's goal to credit. And it should be embarrassing for the club. It should be embarrassing specifically for the sporting directors for the treatment of a guy who absolutely adores this club. And everyone always talks to me about wanting players who want to play for the club. Well, there you have one. And as someone else rightly pointed on, and I can't remember who it was, but someone said, if we'd paid 75 million for Trevoh Chalobah and he'd put in a performance he did last night, everyone would be saying that's why you pay the big money. And I mean, that just hits the nail on the head, and why it so infuriates me, the conversation around Cobham graduates, because they perform at a level that our expensive signings are supposed to perform at on a consistent basis, but they are always the first to be sacrificed for worse players or to make up for the failures elsewhere in the transfer window. So there's my rant over, but I'm just delighted for Trev. I think he deserves it. I think he deserves all the flowers. I think he deserves all the praise and all the credit for also the resilience of that guy is incredible. And let's hope this starts a really good start to the his next run in the Chelsea first team. I'm excited to see how he could perform alongside Levi for the rest of the season, and maybe we even get a back four of Cobham grads. You never know. I've got to give credit to Chelsea in the sense that that first half ended so poorly, and the mood of the game and the crowd had changed, and that could have turned nasty. It could have turned nasty. Chelsea could not afford to not win that game last night for many reasons. Champions League qualification, but just, Maresca's position, the nature of the mood that's turned in the past month. Chelsea needed to find a way to win that game. I've got to give credit to Noni, though. The ball from that right side from his left foot, we've seen it before. And Cucurella, of course, who I don't think had a brilliant game on the ball. He was quite sloppy at times in possession, but he got better as the game went on, making that late run into the box. Horrendous, atrocious defending from Wolves. It was weird. It was bizarre how much time and space Cucurella had, but it was that late run. And of course, it's Cucurella who puts it in, who's been an integral player for Chelsea this season. Huge goal. There was a sense of relief. And then, of course, from another set piece, Trev getting on the end of a Cole Palmer free kick on the left side. I think it was well won by Nicholas Jackson. And then, of course, Noni running in there, making sure it's 3-1. And they had a laugh and joke about it after Noni and Trev. And that really was the end of the game. Looking across the team, attack-wise, you've got to give credit to Noni that he put in that ball, but I don't think from a wide position Chelsea were very good last night. I thought Jackson, unfortunately, his performance was still quite poor. It wasn't anywhere close to even when he doesn't score, but his overall performance is still good. It looks like a player who's lost so much confidence, unfortunately. Dewsbury Hill wasn't awful, but this is a guy who his instinct is to pass backwards, and he can't really win a challenge to save his life or a tackle to save his life. So again, it just symbolises with concerns over Enzo, concerns over Lavia. Why aren't we recalling a central midfielder? It's the most obvious thing in the world. We desperately need a central midfielder, because then later in the game when Enzo looked to his bench, he doesn't really have a proper central midfielder. That is an unworkable situation if Lavia is going to be out again for an extended period of time. Caicedo went down in the first half with what looked like a serious injury. Luckily, he recovered, but I mean, everyone in the stadium held their breath, because if he goes down injured from a midfield point of view, we really are looking at thin options. So again, it's a squad management issue that's just undeniable. And as Matt Law wrote about, the goalkeeper one is another one. That's the issue when walking into this month, which is a very small month of You look at the Sanchez issue, I would recall Petrovic and send Sanchez to Strasbourg. I would recall Andre Santos and try and sell Kiernan Dewsbury Hall or Leslie Ogochukwu. In striker, why aren't we being more serious in striker? But we're still looking for a wide player. The wide players aren't excelling at the moment. I'm not saying they are, but for me, the idea in a very small month that you are only looking at wide players and not actually a centre forward, I think says so much about how much of our transfer business is not. Someone put it brilliantly. It's not actually about improving the squad. It's about player preferences and very much spreadsheet trickery and trying to get around sanctions. That shouldn't be what a club like Chelsea is operating like. And it's not. People try and make out that our transfer business and our transfer strategy is because of the mean authorities and the mean PSR. Now, a lot of our transfer business is either intentional, that is used as a mask to excuse some of our transfer business, or it's making up for the failures we've done already in the transfer window that could have been avoided. It's hard to know where Chelsea go from here, because I think on its own, of course, much relief, much happiness Chelsea have won. I think from an attacking point of view, Palmer to me looks shot as a player. He played some really nice passes in the second half, and there are moments where you see that trickery, but he just looks like a player who's on his last legs, unfortunately, and maybe should have been rested a lot more. Maresca said post-game he's got an ankle issue, so hopefully he's ready for the Man City game. I think he really needs to be at the moment. But obviously the big positive of the night is Trevoh Chalobah and Tosin. I've got to give credit to Tosin. Also to Reece James. I thought Reece James, great to see him back. He looked fresh. He looked fit. He looked physically dominant too. It's of much relief that hopefully we're going up to the Etihad with Reece James. I think the big question will be if Levi's back, will Levi take the place of Tosin Adarabioyo? And then Trev, shifts over to his more natural right centre-back position. Does Rob Sanchez get dropped for a Man City game? Now, I'm not going to deny, I'm not lying to you. I'm not going to try and revise history here. I don't think Jorgensen's been amazing. But the idea Sanchez continues to play when he makes catastrophic errors like that, I just think is inexcusable. And the fact that he's kind of an undroppable Premier League starter, I just think is unacceptable. But Chelsea aren't going to make any moves in the transfer window this month to try and rectify that. So really, it's a case of Maresca just moving to Jorgensen and seeing if that's a better player for us. So a win is a win is a win is a win. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Trevoh Chalobah is back. Death taxes and Trev being Chelsea's best defender. It feels like we've been here for a number of years now, and it just continues. But he has risen again, and Chelsea hopefully are beginning to win again. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.